Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Yakuza, Like a Dragon, and Hardspace Shipbreaker.
Oh.
Yakuza or Yakuza?
You could say either.
Which one will not get me in trouble with the Yakuza?
I don't know if they actually say Yakuza or Yakuza, if they say either. Really, this is weird. This is something I just kind of noticed while playing Yakuza games. Because, I play them all in Japanese, because up to this point they've all been in Japanese. And there's subtitles in English. And I noticed, so whenever, or most of the time, when the subtitles say Yakuza or Yakuza, whichever, the characters are not actually saying that. So I looked it up, and I've forgotten at this point, but there is another term that is, I guess, more commonly used.
Oh.
I should figure that out. I wasn't expecting to go into the Yakuza Japanese vocabulary grab bag, but yeah. And they definitely do say Yakuza at certain points, but I think there's some other term. It means like the extreme path or something. Something just sounds very like Japanese and poetic.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Well, I will probably say both in the same sentence, and for that I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. Next time you're hanging out at the anime club, though, you want to bust out whatever that actual term is, and people will be like, "Ooh,
this guy Yakuza's."
Yeah, exactly. Oh man,
good. We should get a little show business out of the way here at the top. That we want to let our customers, we want to let our listeners know that
customers, fill them in.
We are here to serve you. The Drunktacular is coming. As history would have it, we typically wrap up a season of Video Game Hangover episodes by doing a call-in show and drinking adult beverages. This year we're going to do that on Twitch on Saturday, December 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. You should tune in. You should chat with us. You should crack open a cold one and drink along with us to wrap up this crazy, messed up year.
A cold what? Doesn't matter. Just whatever is cold.
Cold. Even a hot one. You can crack open a hot one if that's your thing.
Crack open a hot one. Ooh. It's been pretty cold around here lately, and I found myself wondering, are there hot ones? I know there's like a hot toddy or whatever.
A hot toddy, yeah.
But other than that, I'm drawing a blank as to what my options are.
Isn't there like a Mexican hot chocolate? Isn't that a hot chocolate with tequila, sambuca, something like that in it?
I don't know if I've never heard of an alcoholic version of that, but I'm sure, you definitely make that.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I made that up.
Maybe you're just like, what this needs? This hot chocolate's just not doing it for me.
Need some sambuca.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
Yep. Ahead of that date, though, we need your help. We need you to get in touch with us and give us your questions, give us your comments, give us your thoughts, give us little conversation starters to help us get through the night. You can call us and leave a message on our voicemail at 682-999-VGH1. You can also just text your question to us at the same number. That's 682-999-VGH1. You've got to do that by the end of the day on December 11th so that we can include it in the show. Or just go to VGHangover.com. There's a ton of ways you can get in touch with us and get your questions in by that deadline.
Yeah. You can ask us about video games, the Yakuza, whatever. We're experts on all matters.
What's word history called? Entomology? Isn't that?
It's either that or that's the study of insects. I'm not sure.
Oh, I think maybe it's the study of insects. Nomenclature.
Etymology.
Yeah,
well, but, still, ask us about either one. We will answer your question. You will be more informed.
Ask me for a short list of words that I frequently confuse for each other. Save that for the end of the show because the list gets longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a good one this year. I can feel it.
Yeah. It's a good thing it won't be on the internet where people can see it.
No, this just goes in a vault. We listen to it once and then it's just, locked up.
Right, exactly. And for our listeners on the podcast, obviously, we will take the audio from that and put it in our feed later in the week, so you will not miss out if you can't tune in on Twitch, of course. Yeah,
that's fine. If you want the full, uncensored technical mishaps happening all over the place, then you should watch the Twitch stream. But we'll get it into the podcast feed eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometime before the end of this calendar year.
Yep. My dogs may inevitably make an appearance. If you want to see that, you've got to be on Twitch.
Oh. Well, I guess I'll tune in.
We have to think about things that are just visual. What can we do that are just visual that won't translate to a podcast?
I don't know. We could just mime the whole thing.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, clearly we have some things we have to hash out before December 12th.
You could do it in Semaphore.
It comes with
full of ideas.
Interpretive dance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Well, yeah. Have we said everything on that? Or do we need to tell them again? VGHangover.com.
Yep.
Hoping
probably
to hear from you soon.
Your best bet, VGHangover.com. Just go there. Anything you need to know is probably there.
Yeah. Okay, so I looked it up, and the word is Gokudo. If you ever hear them, actually, I don't know if you're playing it in Japanese, but that sounds familiar. I've definitely heard Yakuza characters say that, Gokudo.
Okay.
And it means the extreme path.
Oh. Isn't the developer's name Gokudo?
It's no. So you're thinking, so the Japanese title and the name of the studio is Ryuga Gotoku, which means like a dragon, as it were.
Oh, clever. So clever.
A lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Those words are similar, but not the same.
They're similar, yes. Much like many Japanese words, they are deceptively similar.
Yeah. Well, cool. All right.
Much like etymology and entomology.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
It's amazing how much more confusing Japanese words manage to be in far fewer syllables, though. It is just something that is just a constant torment to me.
Good. Well, cool. I look forward to diving into that subject for 2+ hours on Saturday, December 12th with you.
Well, yeah. We'll do the whole show in Japanese.
Yeah. Cool. So we are just kind of getting out of the crazy long holiday Thanksgiving weekend. We're recording this on what is somehow become known as Cyber Monday. Yeah. So how was your holiday, DJ? Did you do anything fun? Did you eat anything good?
It was nice. We had kind of a not even socially distanced, just a very distant Thanksgiving in separate households, like my family members and I. No big communal dinner this year, which I think was good.
Smart. Very smart. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you feel that way.
I approve.
Not ideal, but you got to do what you got to do.
Right. Absolutely.
But it was good. We got a little Thanksgiving takeout kind of thing. And we did a little video call in the evening. It was nice.
Excellent. Loki here as well. It was my first Thanksgiving Black Friday off from working in retail in about 25 years. So I was not eager to fill my schedule with, pressing social engagements. Plus, the COVID. So Sarah and I made a big feast and ate a ton of food, and we watched the Macy's parade on television.
What did they do for the Macy's parade? I heard they had some weird ideas this year.
They basically sort of cordoned off a block in front of the Macy's and had the floats and the performers kind of walk by the front of the Macy's and kind of recorded them one at a time.
Okay.
No crowds, nobody lined up on the sidewalk, of course. So really just sort of used the big Macy's in downtown Manhattan as kind of a backdrop to, the floats going by, or what was the other thing that we saw? A couple of a performance of Hamilton and stuff like that. So, New York things.
Hamilton was in the parade?
Hamilton, there was a performance. They actually cut to it. It was pre-recorded outside of the theater where Hamilton was staged. But they did one of the songs from Hamilton. They did sort of live in the street in front of the beautiful theater where they have it. But yeah, so no crowds or anything like that. They still had commentators. Al Roker was still, employed for the day. It shows me once a year just how sort of out of touch I am with pop culture, where they, some float will go by and it's a cartoon character that everybody loves and I have no clue who it is, or, some pop star will sing a song and, the hosts will be very impressed that she took time out of her busy schedule to show up and I have no clue who it is. But then there's Snoopy and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, how nice it is I don't have to work today.
Right. You don't remember who the big headlining float was this year? Was Sonic the Hedgehog there?
I don't think Sonic was there, no.
Oh.
No, I don't believe so. I didn't remember seeing Sonic.
Number one movie in America. Or whatever.
It is currently?
I thought it was on track to be
time, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not in theaters at this point. Nothing's in theaters at this point. But it was I think it's the top grossing movie this year.
Wow,
just by a total fluke. It's kind of hysterical.
Wow.
Anyway, I think Sonic deserves a float this year.
Sure. You would think. I don't know. Must have missed Sonic somehow, but yeah. My guilty pleasure is Hamilton. I like that a lot, actually. So I was really excited to sort of see that presentation. And then again, sort of, just to sit on the couch and drink a coffee and try to decipher who some of these people were.
It's who are these folks?
Yeah. You seem important, but my sort of knowledge of pop culture does not include you. Yeah. But that's fine. It's good. It was a nice sort of lazy, relaxing day.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Need those.
Yeah, I had a very laid-back weekend, which was nice.
Played some video games.
Oh, yeah. No, I play a lot of that.
Cool. So, me too. This was my first experience playing a Yakuza game.
Oh, is it really? You never, not even any of the weird spin-offs you made an attempt previously?
Never. No. I had sort of a passing interest in playing the zombies one.
Yeah.
And I think you and Paul talked me out of that pretty quickly.
I don't really know what that game is like. It's always been kind of I'm a Yakuza fan, and at various points I've thought to myself, should I play the zombie one? Is it my responsibility as a Yakuza fan to also play this one, which I don't even know how it reviewed, or I don't know how it's regarded, but it's just there.
So maybe it wasn't you that talked me out of it then. Maybe Paul. Somebody took a stand and said, Randy, if you're going to play a Yakuza game, don't play that one.
I mean, I would agree with that. If you're going to play any one game, don't start there. But, I don't know. Reserve judgment on it until I've checked it out.
But the series always seemed, I think, maybe like Final Fantasy to a certain degree, although the Yakuza games are kind of interconnected. They're direct sequels to each other, are they not?
For the most part, yeah. For most of them have been just this one guy, the same protagonist every time, and it's been kind of his continuous story arc, which is kind of unique in video games and impressive that they carried it on for so long. Yeah.
And I think kind of even more impressive that at some point they said, okay, his story is over. We're going to move on to the next person because...
Yeah.
I think the instinct sometimes if you have a video game character that is beloved or a video game series that sells well is don't mess with the formula too much. Mm-hmm. And certainly don't take away the main character that everybody loves. So
I have to say, though, as much as I am a fan of Kazuma Kiryu, that protagonist,
from the previous Yakuza games,
from the previous ones, since 2005 or 6, I'm a huge fan, love him. But I'm always kind of like, what else is there? Give this guy a break. He's been through a lot. So, at the very least, just let him take one game off. And then you can bring him back if people are that sad that he's gone. But I'm always kind of like, what else could you do? Why is every Uncharted game about Nathan Drake? Bring in somebody else.
Yeah. And they did eventually, and it was good. And
they did, yeah. See, that wasn't that hard.
This sort of proof of theory that that the success or failure of Uncharted doesn't necessarily hinge on having that one character in it.
Yeah. Why is it always going to be Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones? Give that guy, please, just let him enjoy his retirement.
Yeah,
please.
I mean, Shia LaBeouf needs the work.
Sometimes it doesn't go as well as others, but Yakuza.
But yeah, so the series always seemed real dense to me, and I didn't quite know where to kind of get into it. And I never really sort of sounded like the kind of video game that I would like. I don't generally sort of care for brawlers when it comes to sort of combat in a game. I don't, and it just, you guys would describe something about the game that would sound intriguing to me, and then I would also hear about, him running a maid cafe and things like that, and I was like, I don't want to do that in a video game. I don't think I'm interested in this at all. So it just seemed a little kind of outside of my realm of interest when it came to a video game. That I just never really dipped into it. I know beloved, almost adored, in fact, by everybody in my life, but just could never find a way in.
It's I would say it's less true now than it was with the previous games. But yes, the earlier Yakuza games definitely were catering to a niche audience. But since then, I don't know what happened. They just blew up in popularity. Now everybody loves them. It's like one of Sega's biggest series, which is kind of amazing to see.
Yeah. And man, the new game, Like a Dragon, crazy good reviews all around. I've not read a sort of negative word about it anywhere on the internet. Seems to be sort of adored by people in my social circle, and it seems to have kind of messed up and rebooted to a certain degree the whole Yakuza thing enough that I felt comfortable maybe kind of stepping into it finally.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly other perfectly good entry points if you are curious about previous Yakuza games, but this one especially seems like a good chance to check out the series, because like we said, there's a new cast. It's like a separate storyline from all the previous games.
But I've not to cut you off, but it is not entirely a clean break, though. That there are references in this new game to the previous series. And obviously, if you've not played those, like myself, you would not get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't think it's essential that like you have a history or just a knowledge of all the previous games to enjoy this.
Right.
It is, I have to say, it's crazy that this even exists. I mean, to clarify, like, obviously they're going to make another Yakuza game at some point. Like, they're going to make a Yakuza 7. Whether it was Kiryu or somebody else, who knows? But I think up until a certain point, everybody just kind of assumed, oh yeah, they're going to bring in a new guy. He's going to be running around the streets of Tokyo, just beating people up. How it's been since the last 6 or 7 installments or whatever.
Right. Plus that one that had zombies in it.
Plus the zombie one, yeah. I don't even know what kind of game that is. That feels like that should be a shooter. I don't know. I have to check that out.
You were going to do some investigation work between now and, yeah.
Yeah. But this one, it's like, you're still a Yakuza. You're an ex-Yakuza. It's not spoiling anything. He was kind of an ex-Yakuza in the previous games.
Yeah.
But very early in the game, it turns out that you are homeless. And so it turns into this weird thing where you just like have no money. You have no place to live. You're sleeping out on the streets. You're just hanging out with other homeless people and dealing with those sort of issues. It's also... it's a turn-based RPG, which is the most insane thing.
Yeah, and I love the justification for it being a turn-based RPG. Is that the character is a nerd and a gamer and loves Dragon Quest. So when he gets sort of into combat, he visualizes the world essentially as a turn-based RPG.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I'm just like, I found myself playing it and just trying to step out of my head for a second and just observe, like try to imagine what it would be like seeing this game as somebody who's like never played a Yakuza game before, has maybe never even heard of them, is not aware of what they're about. And it's this game about like this homeless ex-gangster, and he's running around Tokyo or Yokohama or wherever, and he's just doing RPG battles against like other homeless people or like drunken businessmen. It's just, and it's like
it does frequently turn into Japanese bum fights more than anything.
Yeah.
It's just, you kind of beating the snot out of other homeless people with a bike or a traffic cone.
Yeah, and for the most part, like if you just watched a still of it, it's like very realistically kind of rendered or drawn. Like all the characters are very lifelike. So it's just like, who made this very realistic like RPG about Japanese people just beating each other up on the streets. But that's another thing I love about it, is that it's essentially a comedy. The Yakuza series has gained a reputation for being like comedic, kind of incidentally, in most of the side quests, because that's where most of the just weird, goofy stuff pops up. But I don't know if I would ever I don't know if I would have described any of the previous Yakuza games like, oh yeah, this is a comedy about the Japanese underworld. But this one is absolutely. It's comedic all the way through. And you still have kind of a dramatic main storyline happening with these serious story beats.
Right.
But like most of the dialogue, and especially this is kind of because the main character is kind of a goofball, it's very silly and just kind of effortlessly funny throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of it hinges on this new main character. I think his name is Ichiban, right? And he is not the smartest person in the world.
No, he's not a great Yakuza.
Yeah, but he's really confident. So normally that is a recipe for, I think, being really annoying. But this dude pulls it off. And I think there is some feat of character building and writing that has happened here that makes those personality traits not the most grating thing in the universe. They make him seem very endearing. And, I find myself kind of, firing up the game and tearing into the streets of Yokohama, wondering what hijinks will he get himself into next? You know what I mean? Because it seems like he is this, I don't know, magnet for just absurd disasters. And, and he sort of goes through all of it with the attitude of being just a very positive, upbeat kind of cheerleader of a guy. And, man, what a refreshing take on, a crime underworld drama kind of guy to find in a video game.
Yeah.
I anticipated that Yakuza, just based on title alone, would be, mafia game, would be sort of dark and double crosses and people doing bad things to each other. And the Yakuza in this, so far anyways, I'm not all the way through the game, is almost kind of incidental. It is a backdrop to, him trying to make a life, make a living, and maybe kind of get back in the graces of the Yakuza.
Yeah. And that's kind of how the previous games have been as well. Like Kiryu, who is much more of a, I don't know, like career, or he was a career Yakuza, much more than Ichiban. At the very beginning of the first game, he was kind of like kicked out of the family, and then the fact that he's a Yakuza is just his background at that point, and then he gets into all this other trouble. But he does have all these run-ins with like ex-family members and all that, but out of the ones I played anyway, none of them really felt like you're still like right in the middle of the Yakuza. You're doing the Yakuza business and all that, except for maybe like Yakuza 0, because that was a prequel. But for the most part, it's just an excuse for this guy to have kind of this more textured background, and it's kind of the same way in Like a Dragon, I suppose. Yeah. You get an incident that happens kind of relatively early in this new game in Like a Dragon, where a couple of, teenage dudes on the street are mocking your clothes and the way that you talk and the way that you act. And it sort of shows that they don't even sort of take the Yakuza seriously, that it's not really even like a, I don't know, it's not like the boogeyman on the street is the you don't want to sort of come into contact with or cross the Yakuza. It's just kind of like this sort of like, I don't know, kind of cultural joke in a lot of ways. And I don't know if that's true, but it does sort of feel like it's this very old thing, this very sort of like old men sitting in a room making up crazy rules and taking it very seriously, but nobody on the outside world puts that much thought or drama into it. Yeah, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but it definitely goes that way at a couple points. Yeah. I mean, you basically spend the first many hours of the game in a red 1980s power suit. Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. Yeah. I keep looking for like clothing stores. I'm like, I just need to change my clothes. I can't look at him wear this suit anymore. You got to get that Yakuza cameo DLC or whatever. I think there's some different costumes you can use. Right, exactly. But yeah, it is. It's interesting in the ways that, like, the more I spend time with it, the more it sort of defies what I expected it would be. Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, one of my least favorite kind of like, I don't know if it's really a trope, but just kind of like style of story or moment in a story is when the protagonist, or they're like facing some perilous situation and they don't have a plan, and somebody's just like, well, we'll all just rely on the strength of our friendship to get us through this thing, and somehow it all works out because they're just great friends, and I hate it. And it really feels like there's points during this where it might go that way. And this gets a little into how you were saying, typically you find characters like this irritating. But somehow they manage to spin it where Ichiban still... He doesn't explicitly say that, but he just has such a wholesome approach to everything, and he's just encouraging to everyone around him that, I don't know, essentially it kind of goes that way, but it's not quite as much of the plot device as it is in other stories.
Right. And it's not done in a way that sort of feels saccharine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was this one amazing moment, actually. I was not expecting to have this this reaction to it, and hopefully this is like very mild spoiler, I think, but like you're playing as all these homeless guys, and then at a certain point in the story, after you've been doing some work for people, they are like, hey, why don't you just live in this, I've got an extra room, you can live there, so you're not just sleeping in the park. And there's this scene where he goes in there with his homeless buddy, who's been homeless for way longer than he has, and he's just so relieved that he's like, oh my God, I never thought I would get out of that life. I didn't expect there would be, look, I got a roof over my head and like a mattress to sleep on. And I was like, I was getting like a little teared up over the scene because I was like, I can't imagine being in this guy's shoes, first of all, but just seeing him be so relieved that his situation has improved was really striking. And then it's followed by this like whole motivational speech by Ichiban, because they're a little older than the typical JRPG cast. They're like in their 40s. Mm-hmm. And they just have this talk about what does that mean? And, what do they want to do with their lives? And can they still make something out of themselves? Which really caught me off guard. And I thought it was just an amazing scene.
Yeah. I'm not there yet, but it sounds amazing.
Well, sorry, I didn't give too much away, but I think you'll still get the impact.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I admire, and there's been some stuff written about sort of Yakuza's role in kind of building a video game around a 42-year-old protagonist, and that there are not a lot of video games that again have sort of the confidence to do something like that. And, as a person who is about that age, I can say representation matters. And you do find yourself, in your 40s wondering, is this the path that I'm on? Will I eternally be on this path, or do I have the ability to change my circumstances? And that's kind of exciting. Yeah.
It's something that it didn't jump out to me at first, but, after getting a few more people in my party, and they're all, they're around the same age or maybe older. I think one guy is like retirement age. But I was just like, this is so different from the usual cast of like 18-year-olds. And, the one super old guy is like 25 or whatever.
Exactly.
There's no like whiny kid following us around with their talking pet. And it just does it without, they do talk about it in that one scene, but it feels like they don't go out of their way to like call attention to the fact that this is, it's an older cast than you might typically find in a video game.
Yeah. It's, there are moments, some of the menus and stuff like that are kind of, are designed very assertively. And it does have little sort of flashy moments where I'm like, oh, they're taking a little kind of inspiration maybe from Persona 5 in this. But this cast of characters could not be any different from the group of 16, 17-year-olds from Persona 5. And yeah, it's, again, just very surprising, unique to see that sort of position in a video game.
Yeah. Plus the fact that, I don't know, the fact that he spends so much time with, like in this homeless camp and like getting used to that lifestyle and having to deal with problems like that. But it's done in a way that it feels so grounded, and they're not really, I don't know if like homeless people are necessarily like played for laughs in other games, but if you had like a character who was just a bum in another game, I feel like they would play it up more than, or definitely more than how they play it in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. They're never the easy target, and I think that again, takes balls.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I think just to sort of present kind of a nuts and bolts kind of perspective on playing it, for me coming into a Yakuza game for the first time, man, the first few hours are real tough to get through. When
it's a lot of story.
Just watching just hours of exposition. There are a lot of cutscenes at the beginning of this game.
Yeah.
So I'm here to tell you, listeners, that if you're interested in this but not sure if you want to sit through all those cutscenes, just do it. Just power through it. Every now and then the game will give you the ability to have the controller in your hand and you can do a few things, and then it quickly takes those things away from you and makes you sit through another cutscene. But at some point it does kind of open up and give you a video game to play. And I think it's worth the journey. Hang in there. It'll pay off. Yeah.
I think I was a little numb to this because, as I said last week, I've been playing a lot of Judgment, which is another game by the Yakuza studio. And that game it's like a detective game almost. So there are long stretches where everybody just sits around and talks about clues and evidence and all that kind of stuff. And I've been approaching it almost as like half a game and half just something I sit back and watch because it's like a cool detective story. Mm-hmm. So it didn't faze me quite as much coming into this and being like, oh, okay, so the first couple chapters are like 4 hours of establishing this character and some of the like supporting characters around him. And occasionally, like you said, you'll steer him around the town to get to the next cutscene or whatever. But I feel like it does have the potential to catch people off guard if they've, especially if they just watched a trailer of all the absurd battles that happen in this game and people getting beaten up left and right, and they find themselves watching like a Yakuza movie right at the beginning.
Yeah. And the battles are fun. I really like the combat so far, and I'm having a really good time with it, which is why I'm sort of feeling so antsy about not getting to do it as much as I would like to. I've had a good time once I sort of get into the opportunity to sort of kick some ass, to be able to kind of play with the turn-based controls and dig into some of the pickups and stuff like that and see how everything kind of works. It's there's some interesting sort of RPG things kind of packed under the hood of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so far the battles have been super fun. Yeah. And for the most part, pretty well designed, I think.
Yeah, I did run into a weird scenario. There's like a dungeon almost. You're sort of crawling through the sewers early in the game. And it's kind of narrow, and I kept getting caught on walls and stuff like that, or the camera would get stuck and I couldn't see who was attacking me. And I'm like, this feels like
I see.
Like it's going to get patched. But everything else has worked fine. I've not run into any issues. And I love sort of the incidental stuff that, you know, if there's a bike nearby or, like I said, a traffic cone, or I forget what else he's picked up and kind of thrown at people. But every now and then you'll go in for an attack and he'll scoop up the nearest piece of, you know, public art or something like that and smash it over somebody's head for big damage. Those are always a good time.
Those are really good. Those are always a nice surprise. I find that like in the previous Yakuza games, that was a much larger part of it. I would like to the point where I would see some like enemy characters off in the distance and immediately start scanning the vicinity and be like, okay, what have we got? Some bikes over here, the traffic cone. Where's the best place to like engage these guys?
Right, so that I can throw a bike at them.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I haven't really caught myself doing that in this just because I'm like still kind of trying to get used to the new battle system. But man, the times when he does pick something up, because a lot of the time now it's just not expected. I'm like, oh man, that was really good when he just hit him with that whole like folding sign or whatever it was. I should be on the lookout for those.
Yeah. There was I stopped behind there was a couple of, you know, characters that had a little red icon over their head, which meant, you know, if you move closer, you'll get into a battle with these guys. And I sort of moved up to the point where the little red icon turned into an exclamation point and they were about to attack. And sort of at my feet was a barrel, like a metal drum. And at that point I had not seen him engage one of those before, so I didn't know what it was going to do. And rather than sort of picking it up and smashing it over somebody's head, he sort of like soccer kicks it across the alley and just wipes out the whole lot of them in one shot. And I was like, oh, we gotta find all the barrels now.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, that's good times. And I like that it's kind of this surprising, and it kind of caught me off guard at first because I don't have a game that sort of plays like this sort of interesting kind of combination of being turn-based and that you're prompting sort of each person on your party to take their turn and choose how they're going to engage. Do they heal? Do they fight? Etc. Or block. But while you're doing that, the characters that you've sort of beat or knocked down or staggered are picking themselves up and dusting themselves off. So while it is, yes, turn-based and the game will wait for you to make your decision on who goes next, there's motivation to go quick. Because if you can get that other person while he's still on the ground and hasn't picked himself up and dusted himself off yet, you get extra damage for getting somebody who's downed. So it does encourage you, I think, to be quick, to sort of pick, to scan around with the sticks to try to figure out like who did I beat up last time in this crowd of people that we're currently beating on, and try to funnel your attacks into the people who are kind of vulnerable and can be knocked off so that they don't get another chance to fight back. So the first time I sort of got into a big kind of multi-character battle, I didn't play it that way. I kept like waiting for them to sort of pick themselves up, and then I would fight them again, and you don't get the benefit of that. And I'm like, and I got my ass handed to me. I got killed. And I had to pay a ton of money to start over, which is bullshit.
Oh man,
in a game where you don't have a lot of money to begin with because you're homeless.
Yeah.
So I had to give up a little bit of a lot of the little bit of money that I had to be able to get back into that battle and be much quicker about my decision making.
I want to get to the money thing in a second, but I do love that even though it's no longer really an action game, it still has a lot of elements that make it feel, or let's just kind of keep the flavor from the previous Yakuza games, which were action based. So you've got the pressure to keep beating on people after they've been knocked down. And then also it's got one of my favorite things. It's got the timed hits from Super Mario RPG.
Does it have the hits or just the blocks?
It's got the blocks. If you hit the circle button at the correct time while an enemy is attacking you, you do like a guard,
right? And
it does less damage. But then whenever you use one of the spells, it'll have essentially like a quick time event, or like it'll just throw a button prompt on the screen and you either have to mash it or hit it with the correct timing or whatever. But it's
right. Yeah.
It's just a little thing. I don't think it has time hits for the attacks, which I've desperately tried to like hit the X button or whatever. And
I was experimenting with it as well, because it doesn't give you a prompt. It doesn't, say, hit the square button as you land your punches for extra damage. But I was trying to do it anyways to see if it worked, and it doesn't seem to. It definitely works on the block, so hit those circles as those attacks are coming in. But it's good. It's a little mini game. But yeah, unfortunately, it does not seem to be there in the vanilla attacks that you do.
Yeah, which is too bad, but I wonder if that would have been too much stuff to keep track of. And also, I feel like in some games, it gets to the point where it's like it starts out sounding like kind of a bonus, where it's like, oh, you push this button and you do extra damage, but it's kind of in danger of getting to the point where it's like, oh, press this button to do like the amount of damage that you need to be doing, otherwise you would just not ever be able to beat this boss.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's super good. So the money thing I think is hysterical, because that is how it works in every Dragon Quest game.
Right.
And there are so many just weird little nods to like Dragon Quest and other RPGs, I guess. There's like a bunch of Pokemon stuff, and I forgot what else I've noticed. But the money thing especially is such a direct reference back to Dragon Quest. I was very pleased, because they even tell you, like, if you don't want that to happen, you got to go to the bank, in this case, which is an ATM in a convenience store, and drop all your money in there, and it'll be safe if you ever get into a battle you can't handle. But I thought that was extremely good. There's just so many other little nods in there, like the treasure chests hidden around the town, and just other stuff that I don't want to give away. But if you played a Dragon Quest game previously, or just a Final Fantasy or Pokemon or whatever, there'll probably be little references in there that you'll enjoy.
Yeah. Did you probably noticed this, because it seems like a thing you would get, but during load screens, down in the bottom right hand corner, there's little pixel
Oh yeah,
versions of whoever's in your party kind of marching while
So
the screen
good.
loads. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, those look like Dragon Quest characters right there. Absolutely. So again, somebody put a lot of kind of love and work into this thing.
I'm wondering if those show up anywhere else, because I feel like there's a big opportunity for at some point to just pull up a menu and it just looks like a 16-bit like Final Fantasy menu or something. You get like a black and white command interface, but so far this hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that would be amazing though.
Oh, it'd be really good.
But I like it. I appreciate it. I'm having a good time with it. I like I said, sort of getting over that hurdle of the kind of early hours and surviving some of those really long cutscenes was a lot to ask after I had eaten just a ton of food the other night. But I'm glad I hung in there because I'm having a really good time with it.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
I found myself, during some of those long cutscenes, I knew you were playing this, and I was just found myself thinking, like, wonder how Randy's doing with this.
We're losing Randy. Pick up the pace, guys.
Yeah, which, like, at certain points, it's, like, actually as long as if you're just watching a movie. Some of them are quite long. Maybe not, like, all in one stretch, but by the time you get to the third or fourth hour of this game, probably most of it has been cutscenes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I mean, initially that first hour and a half, which is about the length of your standard movie, is really just a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hang in there.
It's like really good and entertaining because the characters are very interesting, and the voice acting and writing is terrific. But if it's not what you're expecting, it can be a little jarring.
Yeah, yeah, and some of it is sort of seemingly out of context. So if you're me, you're trying to sort of wonder, is this the character I'm following through the game? Who does this person be? Because it sort of starts in the past and brings you to the present, and and you're sort of trying to sort of connect all the threads between those things with very little context. Some of that stuff has already sort of paid back, and I suspect it will continue to. But yeah, it's worth the time investment and certainly worth your attention. And they're really well done. I think. So my observation playing this game the other night is particularly after coming out of playing Watch Dogs Legion, where the character models in that game are just ugly as shit. Oh, no. They're so horrid looking. And the voice acting is also comically bad to sort of come to Like a Dragon. And man, it's gorgeous. The character models are beautiful and really amazing. Well animated. Yeah. And I'm playing it in English.
Okay, I was going to ask. That's my big question.
And George Takei pops up every now and then as a crime boss, and I'm like, "Hey, it's George Takei, excellent."
He's the guy.
Yeah, he's the man.
I was so I'm playing in Japanese because I played all of them in Japanese. This is actually the first Yakuza game that's had an English voice track since the first PS2 one, which was not a good recording. But I was like playing this, and I kind of knew George Takei was in. He like did the English voices at some point, and it just hit me halfway through a scene with he plays like the patriarch of the family.
Right. Yeah. He's the big boss.
And I was just like, oh my god, is that George Takei in the English one? I bet that's George Takei. So I got through a few more chapters, and I went back and like watched some of the scenes on YouTube, and he does a great job, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I think it had the potential to just be like George Takei hamming it up, but he has kind of like a nice, like a little understated performance. And that character is not really like, it's not super over the top or anything, but I think he actually works really well.
Yeah, no, and he's a bit of an enigma. The character is very sort of secretive and has a questionable background. And
actually, I take it back. The character is kind of ridiculous. He looks like this a generic, or not generic, but he's a little melodramatic looking. He's got like the little hat pulled down low, and he's wearing one glove.
He's got a scar
for
on his
some
face.
reason. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little punched up based on compared to previous Yakuza patriarchs.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I sort of thought was funny is the game has an 18-year jump essentially early on, and everybody in the past is still wearing the same clothes in the future. Like the same exact suits. So it's George Takei all dressed in black and has like a reptile skin like overcoat that he wears with a hat pulled down low, like you said. And then fast forward 20 years and he's still got the same suit and hat. And I'm like, you guys mix it up, I think. You probably have some other stuff in the closet. I bring it into the 21st century at least.
Well, he found his luck. He found out what works for him. So he
find
just
a thing that
stick
works.
with it.
Stick with it, yeah.
It's really good.
I just want to follow him home at some point and they open the closet and it's just 100 reptile skin suits.
It's only that.
Yeah. Which one do I want to wear today?
I thought it was sillier that like the his second in command, the captain or whatever, is wearing the same tie, I think. When he shows up later. It's like, really?
Yeah. And they don't seem to age a lot in that 20-year period either. Your protagonist does a bit, mostly because of his hairstyle. Nobody seems to have really gained weight or let themselves go over that 20-year period as well. So good for them. Clean living will get you there.
Yep. That healthy Japanese diet.
Lean foods, right, exactly. Whole grains. That'll do it. But it's good. It's a delight. I've had a good time with it.
It's real good. Oh, excellent. So gonna, see it through?
Probably. It's long. It's really long, right? And I infamously sort of lose attention with games that creep up into the 50 to 60 hour range.
I don't know if it's like super long. I have a hard time judging how long these games actually are because like at a certain point you just get inundated with side quests that you can do and side activities. And if you do a lot of those, then it just becomes this like 80-hour endeavor. But then, like, the main campaign it's not short either. So I think, like, if you just stuck to the main campaign, it might be like 30 hours, maybe 40 on the longer side. But I was kind of speeding my way through Judgment a couple weeks ago because I was considering, like, do I want to rush through this and get to the end before Yakuza comes out? Or do I want to kind of, like, take it slow and enjoy the side stuff? But that, like, even the main campaign of that seemed pretty substantial, so I feel like this one will probably work out to be about the same.
Yeah, I don't have access to a lot of the side distractions. There's allusions to some of it already, but it has kept me on a pretty narrow path thus far. So we'll see. I tend to be very distracted by things like that in video games. Those are always the death of me in the newer GTA games, where it's sort of like, I could drive a cab for 40 hours and not move the story forward at all. So I'll try to be careful about those things in Yakuza.
It's tricky figuring out which ones are like actually important that you do, because there's some like there's a side quest fairly early on where you unlock a pawn shop afterward. I don't know if you run into that one yet, but it made me think like, okay, good.
Yep.
So I was just thinking like, oh, well, that is actually something that I would have hated to miss out on because I'm avoiding side quests and I'm just kind of second guessing myself every time I see somebody with a little speech bubble over their heads where I'm just like, I don't know who that is, but I bet they have a cool mission for me I should maybe do.
Yeah, I just sort of feel like anything that has the potential to give me a few yen might be worth doing because you're just so broke in this game.
Yeah, that's true.
I when that sort of pawn shop thing popped up, I was like, oh, maybe there's money in the pawn shop. I will prioritize that, and I got that done pretty quickly,
Yeah, the pawn shop has actually been helpful because, like yourself, I found myself very strapped for cash at the start. I hear it gets much better later on. But early on, you get a bunch of like energy drinks, which are healing items. But if you look at the stats on them, they're like way overkill compared to what you actually need to be healing at that point. But if you take them over to the pawn shop, they sell for like 15,000 yen. So I was like, wow. Just please take this thing off my hands and I'll buy some new equipment with it. Because it turned out that my equipment was super outdated and I wasn't realizing it. So that was a big help. It got me through some of the tougher battles much faster.
Excellent. Cool. So yeah, I'll hang in there. I find myself sort of getting up in the morning excited to play it again. So it's nice to again. I fire it up and I've been bouncing back and forth between this and Sackboy, trying to wrap up Sackboy and get all my collectibles and stuff in that game. And so I'm swapping discs in the PS4. And as I put in the Yakuza one, I find myself wondering what hijinks will Ichiban get himself into today. And it's nice to sort of spend time with a game like that. It's good.
Yeah. It's just like endlessly amusing and entertaining in whatever way it decides to be.
Yeah.
It's really good. I've had a hard time putting it down.
I fully expected you when I record this episode, and you would be hundreds of hours ahead of me on it. So you are ahead of me, but we're keeping pace, I think, a little bit.
I've been playing it more than I expected, actually, but definitely not at the 100-hour mark yet.
Cool. All right. So you also dipped into another game recently too.
Yeah. So this is I played Hardspace Shipbreaker. This was actually during Extra Life. I checked this out. I just haven't been able to squeeze it into the show until this point. But what it is I think it's just still in early access. But basically, you play as a spaceship salvager, and it's like a first-person game that takes place in zero gravity. So you just like step out of an airlock, and you've got your little jetpack on. And in the salvage bay, there will be some old derelict spacecraft that they don't need anymore, and it's your job to you work for this salvaging company, and you need to take it apart for scrap. Or like maybe you need to extract some essential component out of it based on whatever your work order is for that day.
Mm-hmm.
But it just turns into, like, I don't know if I played another game like this. You have your kind of welding torch and a bunch of other weird kind of sci-fi tools that you use to take the ship apart. Ideally very carefully, so you make the most out of, you get the highest value out of the salvage there. But you can be as reckless as you want. In fact, that was kind of my plan for when I played this during Extra Life. I was just like, I'm just going to jump into this head first, not going to read the manual or do any of the tutorials, because I think that'll be hilarious. Who knows what kind of trouble I'll get into. And it turned out that was not a good idea, because the way the tools work is not very intuitive. It's very important that you do the tutorial. And I don't mean that in like a bad way. It makes it sound like, mandatory tutorials, hate them. But just the way that salvage works in space is different than you would expect. So you've got like your blowtorch, which you use to cut panels in the ship. Like, that's pretty obvious. That I figured that out pretty quickly. But then you've got what do they call them? Like these tethers. And the way that works is, so you slice off a big part of the ship, and then you attach one of these tethers to it, and then you can attach the other end to, there are a couple big kind of disposal areas in the salvage bay, which one is like an incinerator, and the other is, I forget what they call it, but it's just where you send all the other scrap for processing, the stuff that doesn't need to just get destroyed.
The stuff that will make you money.
Yeah, the valuable stuff. And so you just, you attach this, whatever piece of the ship you've just cut off, and tether it to one of these disposal bays, and it just kind of zips over there in zero gravity. And it's so much better than kind of trying to like push it over there yourself, which is what I was trying to do during my first playthrough, which is terrible. And eventually you can get fancy and like tether a whole bunch of stuff together and then send it all over to one of the disposal bays as this big floating chunk, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just stuff like that where it was like, oh, I guess, it's good to go through, shipbreaker training at the start, just so you know how to do your job.
Yeah. I played this at PAX earlier this year. The developers were set up there, and they had a bunch of demo bays, and the demo was long. I remember putting on headphones and sort of getting lost in it for quite a while. And there is something kind of zen about sort of processing a spaceship that and doing it in a strategic way that sort of maximizes your return on those parts. You don't want to cut into the nuclear core and cause a meltdown, because then nothing,
that's bad.
Everything of value is gone now, and you start the game in debt. You owe a corporation a ton of money that has made your lifestyle possible, and every piece you salvage sort of gets you a little bit more out of debt. So you are constantly trying to sort of feed that meter to get back into black, and then have your life to yourself and no longer be under the thumb of this corporation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I again, sort of in this crazy show floor, headphones on, playing it with a mouse and keyboard, which is not my preferred way to absorb a video game, but just kind of zoned out and kind of carved up some spaceships for a little while. And it was like, oh, there's something kind of cool about this that I was not anticipating when I got into it. So again, utterly unique concept. I've never really done a video game like this before.
I kind of had the same reaction where it's weird because if you just look at it on paper, it's like, oh, this video game is about going to work and doing a job, which is strange. But it's like very exciting and weird job. So sometimes I'll just load it up and think like, I'm just going to chill out for an hour. Because like you said, this is just how I play games or games like this apparently, but I'm just very methodical about dissecting these spaceships where I want to get the maximum return out of everything. And I don't want to breach the reactor, but also I'm just like, okay, where can I place this cutter to get the like exact cut that I need to take this panel off the wall? Because you've got you've got your laser blowtorch, but you've also got this thing, which is kind of like the gun from Dead Space, where it cuts a whole line off of a wall at a time, and you can rotate it 90 degrees to make a vertical cut versus a horizontal cut. So I spend a lot of my time just swapping back and forth and trying to get these big lines to line up exactly with this wall and be like, that was a nice clean cut in this panel here. That was a good one. It's going to make a lot of salvage for me.
Excellent.
And then there are other moments where I just kind of don't think about what I'm doing, and I will I'll be inside the ship and accidentally breach one of the exterior walls, and suddenly the entire ship, which is pressurized, is exposed to vacuum, and everything gets sucked out of the side of the ship. And it's like, oh, that's going to cost me a little bit. So there are these weird, just strange sci-fi moments that happen and keep things lively. But for the most part, it's kind of a fun game just to hang out with and take these ships apart. And like you said, you have this massive debt that you're working towards paying off. But along the way, you also earn credits to kind of like incrementally upgrade your equipment. So you can get like a torch with a longer, battery on it, or get more tethers, or increase the strength of your tethers, and just make tiny upgrades like that to make your shipbreaking life a little easier, or enable you to do fancier maneuvers around the ship, or take apart different critical systems and that kind of stuff. But it's just kind of fun to, if I don't feel like beating people up in Yakuza for a few hours, I'll just like load this up and spend usually an hour just taking apart one ship. And I feel like there's a faster way to do it, but that is just how I've been playing the game so far.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's very cool, very unique. And even though, it's in early access, but it feels very playable at this point. I don't know what their ultimate plans are for it. What there's going to be like. It feels like there might be some kind of story developing as you go through the sort of a campaign mode. So that could be interesting. For the most part, I'm able to enjoy it just independent of the story. I'm just like, what kind of ship are we taking apart today? That's all I need to know. Just give me my work orders and I'll go do it.
It's on, I believe it's on Xbox, because Xbox has sort of early access now too. Yeah, but I've not dipped into it. I think it's coming to PS4 at some point. So yeah, I will have to come back to this, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and no, I had not thought of it since playing it at PAX, and I keep a list in my phone because you play so many games at PAX, and some of them are many years away from being released, so I kind of keep a list in my phone of like, remember these games, because if they come out at some point, you should play it. And that was one of those ones that was on there, and you mentioned it for Extra Life, and I was like, hey, I think I played that game. That sounds super familiar. So cool. Yeah, I definitely have to check that out. It does sound like a thing that I like video games where you have chores to do sometimes. So that one sounds like a fun one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You just really need to resist the temptation to take every single piece out of the ship, because it takes a very long time if you do it that way. You do make a lot more money, so maybe that's good. I'm still undecided. I
have found just in my own life that I have like a frustration barrier that if I'm trying to do a thing correctly, and I had this experience kind of over the summer putting ceiling fans in my house, and using like YouTube videos as tutorials, sort of reading the instruction book, obviously, but sort of watching a number of YouTube videos on how to put in a ceiling fan. And like if it doesn't quite go the way that like you want it to go, or I don't have great tools or things like that, just sort of like trying to make a thing happen. Like a bolt is supposed to go into a hole and hold two pieces together, and if that doesn't go perfectly, like my instinct is to just brute force it, is to just bang it into place, and you can't be that person and then sleep comfortably under the ceiling fan that you installed. I did think about that. Yeah. So I think it could potentially go a little sideways in a game like Hardspace, where I'm just sort of like, all right, I'm bored, I'm tired, let's slice and dice the ship and move on to the next thing, and then you get sucked into the vacuum of space.
I definitely have moments like that. I mean, I'm still very careful around the reactor, because that just seems like you want to get this thing out of there in one piece. Right. But there are other times where I'll jet over to part of the ship too quickly, or get hit by a panel, or I think the most recent that happened was there was some kind of power conduit running through a wall, and I hit it with my my cutting beam by mistake, and it like fried my helmet. I was like, it's not good. But, I could get another helmet. I think there's something going on in this game where, like, if you die, they just clone you into another body or something. So kind of a weird mindset to be in, but stakes are not incredibly high at any point.
No permadeath in this.
Yeah. They just add it to your tab, I guess.
Right, exactly. Excellent. Well, cool.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. Having a tough time balancing Yakuza and other games, but I do like coming back to this one once in a while.
Yeah, it does feel like just over the last 2-3 weeks, there's just this whole list of games I want to play before the end of the year, and it's not going to happen, so I have to sort of consume them at a responsible rate.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up so we can get back to doing that exact thing. Yeah, I do want to mention at the end of the show here that Extra Life is still happening, that if you have not donated yet, or you would like to donate again, you can still do that until December 31st. Details for that are at VGHangover.com/extralife. And certainly 100% of the money that you donate goes directly to the charity. And that would be a very nice thing to do if you're looking for sort of a place to donate a few bucks between now and the end of the year.
Yeah.
As always, if you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should definitely follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this very episode at VGHangover.com. There's a link there to join our Discord as well, where you can kind of hang out and chat about video games and things that are not video games, as it usually tends to go. So definitely go to VGHangover.com for a link to that as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And perhaps most importantly, just tell your friends about us.
Yeah, please tell them, I was going to say, ask them for their best Japanese pronunciation tips. But as you're asking them, also tell them that there's this podcast you listen to, and actually that's why you're asking them, because they're in desperate need of some sort of advice.
Yes, absolutely.
We want to give thanks again to Lemonectric for our intro and outro music this week. If you like what you heard, please head on over to lemonectric.bandcamp.com. Check out more of his stuff.
Yeah, excellent.
Pretty good.
It is good. We should tell our listeners that next week will be our kind of end of the year music show. That's right? Am I on the right day?
I think so. Yeah.
What year is this?
I'll be doing a music show next week.
Yeah, so we'll talk about and play clips from some of our favorite video game music of the year of our Lord 2020.
Oh, what a year.
What a year. Yeah, we're just going to skip 2020. Go directly to our favorite game music from, let's do 2019 again. 2019 was not bad. Let's do 2019
was pretty good.
Yeah. But that will happen next week, regardless of what year we decide to feature. And then, we'll roll right into our year-end Drunktacular. So again, go to VGHangover.com for details on how you can contribute to that. And make sure you tune in on Saturday, December 12th on Twitch to watch us drink and be silly.
Yeah. Most importantly, send those questions in. Don't wait till the last minute. Or do. Just don't wait past the last minute. That's the key.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you're a wait to the last minute kind of person, you got to come through. You got to be there at the end. It can't be like waking up on Sunday morning and going, oh, because that's not the last minute. That's that's whatever comes after the last minute.
Yeah. I feel like we should have kept the stream under wraps, because now if they forget, send in a question, they can just show up on the stream.
Just drop it in the chat. Yeah.
Which is fine, but don't make that your plan. Send us an email or something.
Be proactive. You want to be one of those people who are early. Yeah.
Right. Call in. You can have your voice on the show. That's what we want.
That's the fun part. All right, cool. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Have a good one.
Good night.
See ya.